Yeah, David Dread of Steel Pulse, and I'm saying hail to Lion Voice because it's time that the lion have its voice, have its own story. Says I'm stepping out here, hear me now. Yeah, the lion's voice. Raw.
I'm Nana Farika. The time has come for the lioness to tell her story from her viewpoint and tell the world who Queen Omega is. This is the lion's voice.
When His Majesty was bestowed with the imperial vestment, you know what he did? He beckoned to the keeper of the royal treasury. And you know what the royal treasurer did? He came with 10 ounces of pure gold and placed it up on the altar. That was the emperor's offering to the church. So I was always looking at it, because enough time we have Bingi and quarrel about finances while we have Bingi. Me say the greatest and most sacred thing that happened on planet Earth was the coronation of His Majesty, you know. And you know what he did when his investiture took place? He summoned his royal treasurer. And the royal treasurer came with 10 ounces of gold. So before the coronation, him don't tell the treasurer, said, go in the coffers, you know, and bring out my 1/10, you know. And he gave his 1/10 to the church. So we are saying order is the balance of the spiritual and the material. Oh, come on now. This should not have happened. Because after the coronation, there were arguments in many quarters, you know. So it's like, we're going to set the tone now for black man rise. Oh dear, when you go bow to a black king in Africa. This is a deadly blow to white supremacy. And the emperor stepped forward. And you know what he did? He read Psalm 101 aloud. Psalm 101. And if you want to find the research, go to David Talbot's book, The Silver Jubilee of Haile Selassie I. David Talbot, carrying the research on the coronation, said Psalm 101 was read by His Imperial Majesty, and that is why we enacted it into the opening psalms of the Nyahbinghi at the fire key. It's a commitment to order. I will sing of mercy and judgment. Unto thee, O Jah, will I sing. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk in thine house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside, and it shall not cleave to I. A froward heart shall depart from I, and I will not know a wicked person. Whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. He that hath a high look and a proud heart will I not suffer. Mine eye shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with I. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve I. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell in thy house, and he that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all the evildoers from the city of the Most High. Now, when I just imagine those words being said by the king, just received all this authority. I think he was saying to the nation, like an oath of allegiance, I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way.
Well, Lion Voice, tell them that's the people first choice. Lion Voice, make the lioness them feel nice. Lion Voice, with the lion cubs we sacrifice. Lion Voice, got to show the people them the life. Lion Voice.
Well, great is the Almighty, and greatly to be praised in the city of Haile Selassie I, the mountain of His holiness.
Yeah, from Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, you know, the whole entire continent.
Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, from Accra to Addis Ababa.
Yes, it's a beautiful continent, better control, mama.
Very beautiful.
From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, I smile.
lion floor. We gonna use solar energy, use sanitation to build the ecology. We utilizing green technology, we hailing Haile Selassie first. Greetings in that divine name of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. Glory and honor in the name of his chosen queen, Empress Waziri Menen. My name is Kwasi Bansu, aka the Chasmach Kwasi, aka Ras Kwasi, aka the Reading Ras, aka the Pan-African Happy Man, creative industry attorney. I'm an author, I'm an artist, I'm an actionist, and right now I am the host of Lion Talk. Welcome to Lion Talk and welcome to the Lion Voice Network, where the lions are telling our own story. It is Coronation Day. This is one of the biggest days in the liberty of Ras Tafari. We have Coronation, we have the birth of His Majesty as the two major Isla days within the liberty. So you know, if we are Ras Tafari Network, then this day is going to be a special day. Special day, special guest. We have one of, I would say, the greatest orator that we have in the liberty in terms of the stories of His Majesty. You know what I mean? Is a brethren that inspired I as a young university student at Howard University. Seeing them man ya utter, you know what I mean? It inspire I and I. You know, also a public speaker, also doing different works to just step up the game, you know, step up the liberty. This is going to be one of those shows, family. We just had Rasa Bona, if you have not seen that live, doing very well on the platform. We put the pot on the burner, we bubble a nice sip. Tonight we're going to bubble a nice sip same way for the Coronation Ital, strictly Ital. We have Ras Ivi Tafari here, you know, again, one of the brethren that inspired I on the early chart. Before we bring on Ras Ivi, you know, everything we do, we have to big up the Lion Pride. If you just are coming to the platform for the first time, if you subscribe, you're part of the Lion Pride. Big up everyone. We are 11,500 plus. Brata we have now, we're headed toward 12,000. Our goal was 10,000 by January 1st. So everything we get over 10,000 now, Brata, we give thanks. Our goal now, all roads lead to 100 in the Lion Pride on Patreon. And if you don't know, Patreon is a third-party platform that allows content creators to directly be supported by their audience. We say we are Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. For us to stay independent, we need to be funded by our audience, because once we depend on sponsorship, and as the numbers grow, we'll get more sponsors. But once we depend on that, then when their checks, you know, or they don't agree with something, the checks will stop flowing and your thing pop down. If you are funded by your audience, you're accountable to your audience, and that's the business model that we are moving forward with. It's not easy. I've been advising people to go direct to consumer for years, and now that I'm trying to do it, I have nothing but respect for the creatives that make it work. We are here appealing, and you know what I mean, I know that times are hard, and you know it's hard for one to commit. So I'm talking to the core of this platform. We have a strong core of Lion Pride. If you get joy, you get value. Just consider investing $5 a month. If you buy a cup of coffee, you know, think of it as a cup of coffee for the month that you put into Rastafari independent, non-aligned media. We want to get people in at the $10 level. Again, that's, you know, any meal that you buy right now. If you live in North America, it's going to be over $10. That's one meal for the month, 30 days. Consider investing help us to grow the platform, help us to invest better cameras, be able to travel, be able to fund, productions, documentaries, blockbusters, animation, everything as it relates to our culture. We want to elevate how our culture is visualized, how we tell stories within the culture. And we have the network, and I hope that the item have seen we have over 800 plus pieces of content here on the platform. And we have all, Rastafari from all walks of life and the highest quality of reasoning here on the Lion Voice Network. And today it's going to be one such reasoning as we bring forward Ras Ivi Tafari. Big up all the Action Lion Pride, big up the Ubuntu Lion Pride, those who make the one-time contribution. You can do that on Cash App or Zelle. Anything above $50, you become part of the Ubuntu Lion Pride. And everyone who supports, so no matter how, watch and peep, if you just watch, big up yourself. If you peep, and the peepers are the ones who just come to see we pop down or to see we make a mistake or carry some news or look at controversy. Big up the people them same way. You're part of the ecosystem, so we big you up every program. Big up the whole ecosystem because the item are making it work and I'm seeing it sinking. If you are Lion Pride, just put down in the comments where you're watching from. This one is going to be a classic. It's going to be one of those ones that will live forever because the coronation, again, there's no one who tells the story like this brethren. So help I and I to welcome, without further ado, Ras Ivi Tafari. So, Lion Pride, I want to just welcome one of our Rastafari elders, Asian, who inspired on the trad. This is one of the brethren who, when I was a young university student, and I was listening to the elders. I loved the elders, how eloquent they were. But when I saw this younger Ras, and is a man who love citing sources, and as a scholar, I really love that because he might tell you which book him, and it was so inspiring to and I know so many other brethren who are also inspired by this brethren. So we're very honored to have him here right now. This is November 2nd. This will be going to the world. So this is how we're going to celebrate the Coronation Rastafari Independent Non-Aligned Media, is that we are going to do a deep dive into the coronation, the reasoning. These were the reasonings that the elders used to have, with chalice and, all night into the wee hours, and every man have them different facts. And these are the things that we are losing because of technology and the youth's them attention divided. So if we can bring these things here, to us, it's a great strength. To be able to provide a little slice of, as part of our tradition and heritage. So I just want to say welcome, Ras Ivi, second time on the platform. And I'm really excited about this one. The brethren will know how me work for that one, yeah.
Yes, Yes, the jazz man. Ready?
Yes, I.
Yeah, man, give thanks. We give thanks to the moment. It's the eve of the grand coronation. But I know that months before today, ones were journeying from all distant provinces in Ethiopia. On horseback, on muleback, donkey back, on foot, on lion, on every animal that could bear an individual, depend on your rank. You depend on your rank, you have your nice fancy dress horses with your army and everybody with them. Ethiopia don't leave arms. They were going to the grand coronation, but they were armed to the teeth.
Yes.
The king of Wallo, the king of Aksum, the king of the Gambia, the king of Showa, everyone was moving towards Addis Ababa, the new flower.
It was a great concern whether or not war would break out.
Listen,
Yes.
remember, Ethiopia was always on the defensive because they know that the colonial powers wanted this spot of ground. The Pope wanted it because it was the seat of David. It had the
Yes.
throne, it had the Ark of the Covenant, it had the scepter of the world empire, it had the golden globe representing the lordship over earth. It had all the things that pertain into Christ and his second advent. So Rome didn't want it, and all these wars in Ethiopia was about capturing this spot of ground
Yes, I.
for for the Pope in Rome. And we know when Mussolini and them invaded Ethiopia, that was their intent also. But we are at
Yes.
coronation, and we have to rewind to the death of Empress Zaditu, because when
Yes.
Zaditu died in April 1930, the Ras Tafari would have been crowned the next day,
Yes.
but it could not have happened because then this coronation was not equated to Menelik or Johannes nor the other 200 odd kings. This coronation was one of higher significance. So therefore, the scepter, the triple crown, and all these symbolic appurtenances of the coronation had to be done and done with expert craftsmanship. So if it's England the best craftsman there, if anywhere in them there, they had to be found. The garments, the imperial vestment had to be specially done.
Yes.
The diamond encrusted rings, the scepter, the sword of steel, all these things had to be embellished to look as regal as they would have looked for the King of Kings and the Queen of Queens. The country itself had to be renovated. Palaces
Yes.
had to be
Yes.
built because dignitaries from all over the world had to come.
And it was a major show of strength because His Majesty says in his autobiography that in times past, the once a king died, the new king was announced immediately, so there was no gap. You know what I mean?
Exactly. But that
And
could not
because he
have
was
been.
so, strong in terms of his position in the country at that time, and because remember in 1916 there was a civil war, Ras Mikhael invaded.
Exactly.
So it was a recovering country in 1928. You had, lot of intrigue and different things. Even as he was elevated to Negos, it was to quell certain vibration in the country.
And remember, as regent plenipotentiary since 1916, he had traveled many parts of the earth and stamped his mark as a crown prince.
Yes.
Visited Europe, visited all these countries, and returning with a brilliant idea of modernization and all, continue with Menelik's role of getting Ethiopia up to speed. So he was known then, Tafari Makonnen, and sending invitations out had to be part of his crowning. So he sent out a total of 700 royal invitations.
I want to stick a pin because I want the people to understand that in 1924, when you read the autobiography, you would see that when he made this tour of Europe, he had already started sending young Ethiopians abroad to study at various universities. Because when we talk about strategic thinking, Ras Ivi, and planning,
Majesty, he was ahead of his time. As one writer said, he shaped rather than waited upon events. So he was preparing young Ethiopians for governance. He was preparing Ethiopia to be a part of governorship, whereby it's not only the king who rules, because he was now preparing now to a parliament, so he had to have these youths with the requisite knowledge. So as regent, he was on that road to ensure that happened. So the death of Zaditu, it took him exactly 7 months, from the 2nd of April up to the 2nd of November. And it was not coincident that it was All Souls Day on the Christian calendar that he was crowned, November 2nd. So all these times, palaces were built. As the writers would say, Addis Ababa, the capital was so embellished. It truly fitted the name Addis Ababa, the new flower.
Haile. And the
So,
first paved road was put in at that time.
exactly, royal and everything was, and the writers would tell you that the emperor-elect was seen even the day before on the road lifting a stone, helping the workers to ensure that the work was done. Yeah, so we know that is, and remember now we set the tone to show that villagers from distant provinces were walking for miles, for weeks, for months, just
Yes.
to ensure, and it was the rainy season. So just imagine the journey through those rugged terrain and mule and horseback and on foot coming through because they had to make it to the capital to see the grand coronation of his and her, and here what happened. They were also anticipating the crowning of a queen on the same day. That did
Yes.
not happen for thousands of years. So all was looking forward, the women of distant provinces and all were looking forward to see Walata Georgis, Empress Menen Asfa crowned on the day. That was
Man.
jubilation. Ones were
Yeah, man.
looking forward. And then if we go to Europe now, we see in how the King of England was saying to the heir to the throne, you have to go to Ethiopia. What for? He must have asked, what for? You're going to the coronation of a black royal family. Now, a little white youth must care. A little prince, he must care.
Of
Going
course.
to Africa back then because their education had told them that Africans were savages and barbarians.
Of course.
Can you imagine Prince Eugene of Italy being told by Victor Emmanuel that he must go to Ethiopia to pay obeisance to a black king, a black queen, a
And
black
this is before heads of state traveled, and this is traveled by boat and train. This is not airplane.
That's fancy plane. A couple hours. It's hours and weeks to reach. And when you reach Djibouti, you have to travel by train for several hours again over rugged terrain, coming through countrysides to be at the grand coronation. These youths must have been saying, but Father, am I going to the country who defeated us in the Battle of Adwa? Those barbarians? Say, come on now, son, you must go. You're going to bring greetings from our family to the Davidic family. And he must have told these youths a reason. They have to tell them the right thing now, you know. That listen, this throne predates all the established thrones of Europe. You must go. It's not a question, my son. You must go. So Prince Eugene had to prepare. And with him had to be in security and him media following back. And Duke of Gloucester also had to have
some serious bloodlines that were set down there.
Of course, Kaya talk, that of Rome, that of the British monarchy, the House of Windsor, they all had to go. Yeah, Count Metaxas of Greece had to go, 1,000 from Germany, all these great
Poland, Belgium,
every one of them, you know, all the top medias of the world. National Geographic had to send their staff reporter. The Ministry of Information from USA, he also had to go because every country wanted a piece of this rare spectacle. So we have to fast forward. They were all now in Addis Ababa. 1st of November, everyone was there. The king was receiving the high dignitaries. The crown prince was receiving the other dignitaries as they come in at the train station. And on the 1st, you know, His Majesty did the honorable thing of honoring his predecessor, Emperor Menelik, by unveiling a monument in his honor. You know, so the king who is to be honored the following day took time out to honor his predecessor, Emperor Menelik, who set the tone for modernization in Ethiopia.
And also he was on his war horse, so it was symbolic of the victory of Adwa. So he was letting them know that we still have that fire there.
So,
you know?
So in the face of Europe, he honored the man who defeated the Italians at the Battle of Adwa.
Yes.
So, Coronation, Addis Ababa, ram, jam, pack, from corner to corner, every crevice of the capital was jam-packed. We can see it on these videos that for miles a throng gathering when the prophecy say unto him shall the gathering of the people be. We saw the tumultuous gathering, the tens of thousands of Ethiopian men, women, children, and as we say, ass back, donkey back, mule back, lion back, on foot. They were all here in Addis Ababa. The video show you man are bringing in bungla, sacramental herb, man are bringing in food, can come camp out for the coronation. Whole thing was 11 days. So man here, everyone come in. Now, you know, as it dawned now, preparations for the thing. But 2 weeks prior to, just imagine the clergy, every man was preparing. You have to get your best suit prepared, you know. Everyone had to be preparing, just like how the king had to have all the paraphernalia, the clergy had to be in their best attire. Everyone was prepared. The capital was beautiful, bedecked, as the writer says, never before. Yeah.
And let us also let the people know by this time Ras Tafari is a legend in Ethiopia. You know, from he was a small child. This was a building, you know, the murmurs and thing, but because his bloodline wasn't supposed to sit on the throne. You know, they thought that Ras McCunnin had one of the weaker claims because it came through the female line.
Yeah.
So they never look at him as a threat in the early days, but this dude just keep on coming on top.
Keep on climbing.
Yes.
Keep on climbing, you know, ascending with humility, with knowledge, with grace. You know, he was just there. And Menelik knew that he was the man. He was the prince, because Menelik knew that from age 7, when he was speaking to his French advisors in French at age 7, Menelik was astonished. And he would pull one of the French man aside and say, did he speak to you in your language and it was correct? And he said, oh yes, that boy is a fine boy. I mean, Menelik already did tell Makonnen, this young prince cannot stay in Harar. Send him to me in the palace. So he grew up in the palace of Emperor Menelik, and he was just not an ordinary child. And the writers would tell you that the young Tafari was born under a fortunate star.
Yes.
He was regarded as a prodigy, as a young child. Circumstances surrounding his childhood and attempt murder and all assassination, he foiled them all.
Everything. And remember, when in the autobiography it says that at the age of 13, when he went to stay with Emperor Menelik, he spent 8 months, day and night. He said he shadowed Emperor Menelik, all the affairs of government, until one day he realized that other youths were being educated, and he said to Emperor Menelik, you know, I wish to attend, you know, classes with my peers. And Emperor Menelik said, I didn't tell you because you're so advanced. I didn't think you'd be interested in them kind of learning there. And he said, no, you know, we want to learn. You know what I mean? And so he started learning with the princes, but he got advanced French because he had already learned French. And so he had to get separate tutors, him and Ras Emaru. You know what I mean? Were there. But and because it's important, because when you talk about the priest chanting for 7 days, and you're going to go into that detail, I want the people to understand why the church was treating Tafari this way, you know, because they knew who he was. You know, the legend kept on being proven true. You know, by this time, when he's wearing the crimson and he's taking in all the seals, the country is behind him, the church, the man them within the Asian mystery schools, the monasteries, Deborah Libanos, you know, all of the Asian thing, they're with him by this time. He has won over, you know what I mean?
And they were astonished by his depth of knowledge on ecclesiastical matters. So the young child, he was a brilliant young prince. And being crowned, I mean, the Jasmak in his youth days until he became the regent, Ras, heir to the throne, Ras of Rasses, Judge of Judges, Regent Plenipotentiary 1916, 1928, became Negus. And then November now was slated for this grand coronation. So 14 days prior to the coronation, the clergy was in their high orders, praying over the royal appurtenances of the coronation for 14 days and night. This is a serious commitment of what you call spirituality, where these priests gathered and these are fast days, and they would have prayed unceasingly and chanted until the night of the 1st of November. That's the time now when they said the emperor and empress spent a night of prayer in the Holy of Holies. Now somebody has to wait, so the empress did in that too? Of course. The king brought his queen. They were inside the Kiddush Kidan, the Holy of Holies, male and female, chanting solemn prayer and meditation. I remember the coronation is a morning, and they were in meditation and prayer the night. They spent the night at the holy altar. So the morning, 7 a.m., when those church bells rang and the drums sounded and everyone was ready. St. George's Cathedral, large as it was, because I stood at the door and I looked inside 1992 and I imagined coronation and said, this massive church couldn't hold the grand coronation. No, they had to have 2 great tents outside in the churchyard and 2 canopies where the twin thrones were. And the bedrock from the throne room of King Solomon was also brought and placed inside these canopies to seat the throne of David. So it was like replicating the old Davidic Solomonic lineage, that even the bedrock from the destructed temple in Jerusalem was brought to Ethiopia. Okay. For his grand coronation.
I did not know that. So you see?
Yes, if you read Asorate Kasa's book, Tragedies and Triumph of the King of Kings, you will get that information. So under these great tents were the twin thrones, and then 49 devout priests and monks in the 7th side at the cathedral. Now, if we look at the geographical location now, the cathedral was over there. The great tents was on the outside. So you will hear, and when you read the National Geographic, and it says from inside the cathedral came the seemingly far-off chants of hundreds of priests chanting prayers to the God of gods. That means you're outside, but the sound of chants was emanating from inside the cathedral, outside into the great tents in mighty volume. And then the Abuna Krilios. Now we know that the head of the church now was the Holy Alexandrian Church, was the Abuna Krilios. So he too had to journey from Egypt to come to Ethiopia to be a part of the occasion, because he was the high Abuna. So he was the patriarch of Alexandria. So he had to be there. So His Majesty at the start of this coronation, he ordered Psalm 122 to be read. Okay. So Psalm 122 was the emperor's choice of the first psalm.
So what happened to the people who burn the Bible, Ras Ivi? How they going to feel when they hear this?
If you are not knowledgeable of the grand coronation, step into Lion Talk. Talk about the grand coronation. This grand coronation was a biblical event.
Well, this is why we should be careful.
14 days prior to, 49 devout priests, bishops, and monks are chant Psalms of David continuously in turn. This is not a simple thing.
And we have to remember that this church, which had split, at the Council of Chalcedon, had prepared itself to anoint this king. This is, the crown had to be bestowed by this institution, which was preserving the true faith of Yeshua, fully human, fully divine. From how it was at the beginning of Nile Valley civilization, where we recognize the Almighty within Man.
So, Psalm 122 was ordained by His Majesty. I was glad when they said unto I, come, let us go into the house of the living God, Ras Tafari. My feet should stand in thy gates, O Jerusalem. Jerusalem is builded as a city that is compact together. Whether the tribes go up, the tribes of the Most High, to the testimony of it, to give thanks and praises unto the name of the living eye. He said, Jah Rastafari. For here I said, thrones of judgment to judgment, thrones of the house of great David. We pray for the peace of Ethiopia. I and I shall prosper that love Jah. That was the first psalm that was read, that brought everyone on their feet. And then, when that happened, the Abuna, Krilios, would come forward. And the Abuna Krilios, the man who will officiate the whole thing now, because, he too went into the Bible and he read Psalm 72. So coronation was a biblical event. Give the king thy judgment, O Lord, and thy righteousness unto the king's son. That was Psalm 72. So we are asked once, the youth say, oh, they go read these Psalms and know that these were read at the grand coronation.
And they would have been read in his language. They would have been chanted in the ancient.
In the ancient days.
Yes.
Ancient days. So all Prince Eugenia and them boy who claim to them learn. They might hear a language where strange language.
Yes,
Yes, here is an independent people. Them speaking them own tongue. Yeah? Them have them own king, them own generals, them own, you better call them in Europe lords. We had Rasses.
Yes.
The Jazz Max. We had
the lion mane armor. Rhino.
Listen.
Yes.
And we must say this. How His Majesty skillfully seat them, because he had the organizers. If you're the king of Tigray, you sat beside Prince Yodini, or Prince Yodini sat right beside the king of Tigray. So when him looked to him left, him see a mighty lion beside him. If him look to him right, him see the king of Wallow. So His Majesty place that you have your rank, we have our rank too.
Yes.
He's a duke. I'm going to put another Ethiopian of rank right beside you. So His Majesty make them realize that you have your rank, we have our ranks too.
Right.
And from a more ancient kingdom. So that was how His Majesty carefully ordered that they be seated. Equally in rank, you're right beside my Ethiopian general. And
a lot of these races were still the barefoot tradition. So they had their royal gears, but them barefoot. So them have the anciency.
Yes, I. So the Abuna, Psalm 72, and then all the symbols were there. They were in a nice space with a nice altar covering, and then the keeper of the royal treasury would go forward and bring out the imperial vestment. The imperial vestment now was the first. The king came inside the great tent in his white silk communion robe, but then he had to be in his royal coronation robe. So, yes, Abuna Isaac brought forward the imperial vestment. And, prayers was tendered, the blessing of the Abuna Krilios. And then each symbol presented, this is something that we found out when we were doing our reenactment in Florida in 2005. Give thanks to our researcher, Dr. Jake Womiak, because, ones who had these videos hidden in secret vaults, it had reached the Smithsonian. And Dr. Omiak brought to us in Florida the night before we did the reenactment a copy of a tape that was in one of those vaults, and it had the grand coronation that was recorded. I was saying, wow, then you mean this grand coronation was recorded and these tapes are sitting in secret vaults, not unearthed, not shown to the world? Wow, this was a treasure for us to sit that night and to look at it. What I found out is that when 7 priests, like Abuna Isaac was coming with the vestment, he came along with 6 more bishops and priests with him. So it was in groups of 7. And they encircled the throne like a semicircle. So if you were sitting like where Prince Dini and the others were sitting as international guests, you would not see, because there was a priestly curtain. These priests form a circle around the throne, a semicircle, and then one of them are two, the bishop and other. They were the one who was putting on the ancient regalia, the ancient vestment on His Majesty's coronation robe. So the eyes of men, you can't see when the king have put on him robe. You have to try peep, and if him try peep to that side there, the lion man from Abuna Petros juke him, or the king of Tigray him try lion man juke him over there, say him have to straighten up and sit him up and know say what is happening there. It's a divine portion. You cannot see that part.
Yes.
When they completed that task and removed from the throne, then you would have seen the king in his highly full coronation robe, and can imagine what one say, ooh, beautiful as ever.
The crimson.
And with that, excerpts of Psalm 80 was read when he received his imperial vestment. Thereafter, another band of 7 came, and the high priest of the south now, Abuna Sawiras came with the sword of Solomon, brought it to the Abuna, bestowed his blessing, and that blessing now given back to Sawiras, who went up with another bishop to His Majesty. 7 of them now circle the throne and presented the sword. Now, you know the Abuna went across the emperor when he had his sword. And it was with these words, gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O thou most mighty, in thy glory and thy majesty. And then the Abuna came forward, and the Abuna said, with the sword ye shall punish the wicked and protect the righteous.
What?
So he was given a command as to hold the sword, and there were other words that went with it, you know. You can succor the widow and the orphan, you shall protect the holy church, and all these things. So all these things were bestowed. But you know, prior to that, the emperor had to swear an oath, because the Abuna accosted him first before all these symbols, you know. Do you, Haile Selassie the first, swear to protect the Holy Alexandrian Church, which, as you know from the times of the great kings Hasbaha and Habraha, have been in existence and in force? Do you swear to protect the boundaries of all your people and to build institutions of learning for the education and welfare of your population, and to protect your country in both peace and war? His Majesty, I've never heard this level of humility. You know, His Majesty, when we read all his speeches, you know, him always say, we in Ethiopia, him always say we. But here when him say coronation morning, in answering the Abuna, I will be the righteous monarch demanded of myself. And when I read that, I said, wow, this is a commitment. So His Majesty's first allegiance was to the church. And you know, His Majesty lists the independence of the church in 1962, it was, as one of his greatest achievements, when he won independence from Egypt.
Yes.
Even though Abuna Crilius was there, you know, His Majesty, deep in his heart, wouldn't mind. It was an Ethiopian clergyman was the head of the church. But he was
and he had started laying that groundwork from the 1924 trial when he stopped in Cairo and he met with the, you know, just letting them know the levels, you know what I mean? Giving them the reasoning for make him know about all of the book of Enoch and the Jubilees and him going on some history, make the man them know we can manage in Ethiopia. You know,
His Majesty has done so great, man. So after all that, you know, and you know, the Abuna even exhorted the people with the words, ye princes, princesses and ministers, ye nobles and chiefs of the army, ye professors and priests, look ye upon our emperor Haile Selassie I, descended from the dynasty of Menelik I, who was born of King Solomon and Queen Sheba, a dynasty perpetuated without interruption from King Haile Selassie unto our time. And here the Abuna instruct them, to him ye shall give obedience, not only in deeds, but even with your hearts.
Aye.
So when you sit in and hear all this, the Abuna and the all them instruction as an Ethiopian, you must feel great that yes, we all have a commitment to make to the newly crowned emperor. So after the emperor received his imperial vestments, he received the sword of Solomon, then came forth the golden scepter. And
Okay.
the scepter, there's a magnificent history surrounding the scepter. I'm not sure if many ones have ever heard or even read. I would really like the judgment if we could just look at a few words pertaining to the scepter,
This is
because
the platform, Ras Ivi. Go where you want, take it, because we touched on it. I reasoned with your colleague Rasabona, and we touched on it. But we want this is what this audience loves, is to really the glory, the honor. We have to take time to share this with our young people across the world, because this is at the same time that Jim Crow is happening in America. There is no free African space on the planet Earth at this time, when all of this glory and all of these European powers are in the mountains of Addis Ababa and over 9,000 feet above sea level. Some of them probably having trouble breathing because they're thin. Them up in the holy mountains for real. And they're seeing something, and National Geographic describe it as a scene out of the Bible.
yes, the writer said for a moment, the centuries seem to have slipped back into biblical times.
Yes.
Meaning they were there, but it seemed as if the pages of prophecy was unfolding. Because with each symbol, there was a prophecy that was read. When he was given the sword, one priest read from Psalm 45.
Hot.
Gird thy sword upon thy thigh, O thou most mighty. I encourage you to read these things, because His Majesty sat in the presence of all these prophetic utterances that heralded his coronation. Yeah? When are we coming to the scepter?
Yeah,
But
man.
as we say, the scepter, this is an information on the scepter. And, Wallace Budge, one of the great historians, he did a research. And this is an information that we shared when we did the reenactment, because most racists probably up to now have not read this or heard this.
Yes.
The lion voice, with the lion reasoning, with the lion talk, will unfold. So the
Haile.
scepter, a magnificent piece of craftsmanship, was ready to be bestowed. The symbol of the emperor's authority, wisdom, and knowledge was made of solid gold. On the flat bar at the end was written in Hebrew letters the ineffable and mightiest of all the names of God. This great name stands in the middle of the pentacle, a magical and mystical symbol which was in use in Babylonia in the 4th millennium before Christ. We are talking about our empires, our kingdoms, we're not talking
Yeah, man.
about. We are
Kush.
talking
Once you
about
say Babylon,
our ancient empire that brought the hanging gods of Babylon.
yes. Once you say Babylon, you can just say Kush.
Exactly. That's
Interchangeably.
what
Because
Boba Fett
sometimes
said.
we think Babylon, they think about Arab, but in that
Yes.
Babylon, you think
No.
the Asian Babylon is
Ancient
Kushite.
kingdom of Kush. Yes,
Yeah,
I.
man.
The pentacle was cut out on the wonderful shamir stone, which was set in the famous ring of King Solomon. The great name enabled him to work miracles, and the pentacle gave him power to destroy all the evil influences which the devils and their servants on earth could bring against him. As the Emperor Haile Selassie I, the conquering lion of Judah, was the 225th king in the Solomonic line, both the great name and the pentacle was inscribed on the scepter. So it was just in the ring of Solomon, you know. But because he's the 225th, because the prophecy was that the 225th king will be the God king, the Christ
Okay.
return, the
Okay.
Senuma Idziabir, the Madlania Lamb, the Lion of Judah.
Hmm.
So you know his crowning would have to be different from all the other kings, not even Solomon in all his glory. So both the great name was inscribed on the scepter. So as the emperor was the 225th king, both the great name and the pentacle was inscribed on the scepter. On the right hand side of the length of the shaft was engraved in the Amharic language of Ethiopia the words from Psalm 68 verse 31, Ethiopia shall stretch forth her hands unto
Hmm.
the Almighty Jah. On the left side of the length of the shaft was engraved in Ge'ez, the ecclesiastical language of Ethiopia, the words, the scepter of Haile Selassie I, King of Kings of Ethiopia.
Hmm.
The question is, was this newly done? Was this the scepter of state? Or was it that it was specially done that it bore the name, the scepter of Haile Selassie I? Or it was inscribed to be given to the king whose name would have been Haile Selassie I
Hmm.
and be manifested on November 2nd, 1930? Well, the scepter bore his name, the scepter of Haile Selassie I.
Serious thing.
At the top
What
of the
book is that
shaft,
they're reading from before you continue?
this is the script I had put together for the Grand
Okay,
Coronation
okay, okay,
reenactment.
okay.
But the
Give them.
writings came from a book by Wallace Budge. He wrote this piece. Yeah. At the top of the shaft is a reproduction of the circular seal of King Menelik II of Ethiopia, showing the lion carrying the cross with its banner unfurled. The inscription read, "The Lion of the tribe of Judah had conquered." You know,
Hmm.
Menelik, that seal would have to be on the scepter, on the top bar of the scepter. Befitting the authority of the King of Kings, the scepter befitting the authority of the King of Kings was brought by another priest to the Abuna for his blessings. So the Abuna brought the scepter now to Abuna Krilios for Abuna Krilios to pronounce his blessing. So each symbol was brought to the Abuna for his blessing, and then each symbol was tended with an anointing because they had
Hmm.
seven vials of ancient, 7 oils of ancient prescription. I know one of them was the oil of myrrh. I would think one of them would have been the oil of frankincense. I think one of them must have been the ganja oil.
I was going to
Yeah.
say cannabis was part of the ancient oil. I'm not getting any sound. Your sound gone.
Yes, so
Yes.
these
Yes. You're
symbols
saying the ganja oil.
was, yes, so the 7 oils, the only oil I can say from a position of knowledge reading was that the final oil was the oil of myrrh that was used just before the triple crown was placed on his head. So we need to do some research. We need to find out what the other oils were that anointed the king, because there were 7 ancient prescriptions. So the Abuna would have anointed the king after the blessing, and then the scepter was tendered. When the scepter was tendered, the choir burst out into a glorious chant. And it was from Psalm 45, "Thy throne, O Jah, is forevermore, and the scepter of thy kingdom is a righteous scepter. Thou
Yes.
lovest righteousness and hateth wickedness." So in each bestowal of a symbol, a prophecy was read, fulfilling what took place a while ago. Thy throne, oh God. Just imagine now, we are in St. George's, we are in the great tents, and we see a priest come and bow before the Emperor Haile Selassie I with his golden scepter in his hand, kneeling on his knees to say, Thy throne, O God, is forever and ever. The scepter of thy kingdom is a righteous scepter. What should I conceive in my mind? Is this not God? Is this not the priest bestowing the scepter of state upon the God of Ethiopia on the throne of David? So no Ras can tell Ras Ivi that coronation was not a biblical event. If you talk about the grand coronation of Haile Selassie I, if you refer to him as King of Kings, Lord of Lords, conquering Lion of Judah, you're talking about prophecy.
That is
And
it.
I say that without
No, it's a reality, and we have to stand with the truth and the history, because these are inconvenient facts to a lot of ones who create this anti-biblical narrative.
Yeah.
Yes, let us kick away the European concepts from the Bible. I agree with that 1,000%. I am not a man that go and utter Jesus out of my mouth. I go and say Yeshua. But the history, Ethiopia stands as a ever-living symbol that this history was a true history, because without that, they would never get the victory. Once you say the Battle of Adwa, you were talking about the Solomonic throne, uniting that throne of that Christ tradition is what liberated Africa and kept Africa independent, coming down through the generation. That's just a historical fact. You know what I mean? So,
and we can't discount what took place, what is facts, what is history. Coronation was a biblical event.
Biblical,
and,
yes,
and as we went, just fast tracking, because there's a lot of things to be said in a short time. When His Majesty was bestowed with the imperial vestment, you know what he did? He beckoned to the keeper of the royal treasury. And you know what the royal treasurer did? He came with 10 ounces of pure gold and placed it upon the altar. That was the emperor's offering to the church. So I was always looking at it, because enough time we have Bingi and quarrel about finances while we have Bingi. Me said the greatest and most sacred thing that happened on planet Earth was the coronation of His Majesty, you know. And you know what he did when his investiture took place? He summoned his royal treasurer. And the royal treasurer came with 10 ounces of gold. So before the coronation, him don't tell the treasurer, I said, go in there, coffers, and bring out my 1/10, And he gave his 1/10 to the church.
Melchizedek order
is the balance of the spiritual and the material.
And it's Melchizedek order, because remember the ancient King Melchizedek who demanded 1/10.
1/10 of the spoils.
Haile.
So Abuna Michael came with the scepter and gave the command. And the king now sat back on his throne with the gold. So you know him have the sword. Him have investment on him, coronation robe. Now him have the scepter of state now. The symbol of authority and power. And we say world power, because there's no other throne that predated his throne. So when him sit, all thrones fall down. All kings, just like England send them king, Italy send them, and all the greats of the world send their kings and their higher officers to bow down. So who is Haile Selassie I? He's the highest of the highest, been enthroned before nations of the world. And remember, this is a black royal family. Tell me a point in history when any European nation, whether that be under colonialism, bow to a black man, bow to a black woman, bow to a black prince. So this was unprecedented. This set the tone. You see all them like white supremacists, them get a terrible blow when this coronation took place.
I have a theory, I have a theory that the Great Depression and all of the bank runs and everything were the people them afraid of what was going to happen when Tafari sit on the throne of David, that he was going to execute judgment on them, Because remember, the Great Depression started 1930,
Yeah.
So I have my theory. I can't prove it yet, but I'm sure that all of the money people take them money, them start prepare, because them sister Tafari go sit on the throne of David and he declares They were afraid, and then 5 years later, the attack came. The beast shall make war.
But look, this king was not only just crowned, but the highest of Europe had to go to Addis Ababa to bow.
To bow.
That's the bitter pill they had to swallow,
Yes.
You mean our monarchy had to go and bow before a black family? Oh, come on now. This should not have happened. Because after the coronation, there were arguments in many quarters, So it's like, who set the tone now for black man rise? Oh dear, when you go bow to a black king in Africa. This is a deadly blow to white supremacy. But then after the scepter was tendered, then another ancient priest took from the royal treasure now the golden globe of the earth. Now we see them here some false images of a blonde-haired guy with crown and robe and scepter and golden globe and all these things. Like them are ape what was a fact in Ethiopia with a black king in Haile Selassie the first. And the symbolism of the globe in his hand was like, you hear the chant just say, Jah got the whole world in his hand. That's the symbol. He was Lord over earth. That was that symbolized that, yes, he's the God over earth. Here, and hear what the priest say. Thou shalt have dominion from sea to sea and from the rivers to the ends of the earth.
Yes,
and gave him the golden globe of the earth. So we always say when we are chanting, Jah got the whole world in his hands, Jah got the whole wide world. The church people them sing it too. But can they show us a symbolism of any character personifying the reality on earth on the throne of David? Christians talk about Christ being a King of Kings and Lord of Lords and a conquering Lion of Judah. So are you telling me that the same things that fulfill with Haile Selassie the first is going to fulfill with another person?
They would be second. They would be second. They can't be first.
And him have to come from the same family of Haile Selassie the first.
Yes.
They have the authenticity to the lineage of David and so on.
And Ras Abuna made a very good point first day. He said that the scepter shall not depart from Judah.
Nor allow giver from between his feet. That was part of the exhortation when the scepter was tendered. The priest continued to say, the scepter shall not depart from Judah. So it's a black man thing.
And he's saying right now the scepter has departed because there's no one on the throne. For the first time. So that means that Shiloh must have come.
Of course, because the reign of the king, even when he is not there, physically there, then because there is no king to be crowned, there's no other to take his office, so the king reigns.
Yes, and remember that his Majesty said that the sacrifice of Yeshua meant that the Almighty now dwell within the hearts of man. And so we see that this Lion of Judah flag now flies on every continent across the earth. Not by gun and bullet, but by divine order and his children, because he also says that the time when the emperor would govern by himself, this time has ended. The time has come for the people to share in the responsibility of government. With the emperor, and this is why he became Minister of Education, to train this generation and the generations to come. That Haile Selassie now is in every ample, every eye. I now become the goodie of Haile Selassie first. So to take us forward, the eye was doing such an exceptional work.
So as the eye say now, the Lion of Judah flag. Remember, even the state take it down, since 1974,
Yes.
That Lion of Judah symbol, it was taken even from the certain buildings. They remove all these things because, the Marxist Mengistu regime, the influence of the Marxists came into Ethiopia and tried to erase his name. Yeah, but Ras Tafari, as the I say, has globalized this flag. Everywhere you go on the planet, where there is a one shouting the name Ras Tafari, that red, gold, and green. So Rastafari, we own that flag. We can now own that flag. It's not the state flag of Ethiopia anymore, but it's the flag that you will see in every home of Rastafari, representing the Lion of Judah as written in prophecy.
And the domain of his kingdom, there shall be no ending. You know what I mean? When you hear
No
the prophecy,
end. So we
no.
continue the kingdom of the Almighty.
Yes,
in
I
flesh. So the symbols are being tendered, and we are down now to the fifth symbol now, the rings. Now, the emperor received 2 rings, 2 diamond encrusted rings, yeah? Then you have Abuna Abraham and the Abbot of Matula. They would come forward, take these 2 rings. They place one on the right hand of the emperor. They say it was a symbol of his devotion to the divine or his earthly glory. One on his left, another encrusted ring placed by Abuna Abraham. It was a symbol of his heavenly glory. So 2 rings he received, one on the left, one on the right. And after all that was tendered, after his anointing, then Abuna Petros. Whenever I call that name Abuna Petros, I learned about Abuna Petros when the Italians stabbed him in his back during the Mussolini War. Because he had defied them so many times. He was like a mystic man. They waited until he was in prayer. And an Italian by the name of Gallini stabbed him in his back with a dagger. Abuna Petros was at the Grand Coronation. And Abuna Petros, he tendered the 2 lances.
Okay.
And he summoned the master of the king's horses and these 2 lances. So that is the 6th symbol. So after that is a moment of chant and all the great chants. Psalm 44, Psalm 45, these were sung, these chants were chanted. And even in the coronation reenactment, we were saying, then we will get the melody for Psalm 44. We have to look at Psalm 44 and put it in a chant because we want to make this coronation reenactment real. I was flying from Florida to New York. And upon the wings of the wind, I was just looking out in the clouds. And there was a melody. I was looking at Psalm 44 in the Bible too. And that melody came. So we chanted this chant, Psalm 44, excerpt of it, into a nice chant that I know the community will embrace fully one day. Ones have had it because enough ones have seen it on the reenactment tape.
Yes,
and we have put it on a booklet this year. By tomorrow I should have the melody. I can send it out to ones because we must chant it whenever we celebrate the coronation because it took place 1930. And we have to have the frankincense and myrrh too.
Yeah, man.
Because without frankincense and myrrh, there's no spiritual gathering nor social gathering in Ethiopia. We in Jamaica is when we hear man about frankincense and myrrh. No, the man there run some dopey, brother. We always associate frankincense and myrrh with some dopey spirit thing. But when I went to Ethiopia, there was no home, there was no church of orthodoxy where frankincense and myrrh did not fumigate the tabernacle and the home. We saw it at the Grand Coronation. There were priests waving the censer. The first time we brought it at the tabernacle at Pittsford was in 1997 when we did the first reenactment. If we bring strange incense in at the tabernacle other than ganja wasn't an easy ordeal. Among these great elders, traditional lines where you can't bring nothing too strange to them as a young man. But I had the honor of reasoning with the hierarchy, just as His Majesty wanted to have Her Majesty crowned on the day of his coronation. But you think him could have just said to happen so? When for thousands of years it never happened?
It's not a bully thing. It's not a bullyism.
Make we leave that part to when we draw near the end.
All right.
So we're going to stay right now when these psalms were chanted and all the things were happening and it was time now for the Triple Crown. Before the Triple Crown, now he had to be anointed. Now the final vial, the final oil of anointing, which I said earlier in the book, triumphs and tragedies, I got the info that it was the oil of myrrh. And I take it that's an Ethiopian as Rate Kasa did his research well and brought this information to us. The oil of myrrh was used, but when this vial was opened and Abuna Crilius anointed the head of the emperor, he said these words: as Samuel anointed David, as Nathan and Zadok anointed Solomon, I anoint you, Haile Selassie I, with this most precious and sacred oil. Now, when I read them history, Ras Tafari, remember this is the grand coronation, The Abuna went back to the anointing of David. He fast forward to the anointing of Solomon. And look how many kings him skip. 220 odd coming to the crowning, the anointing of Haile Selassie I. 3 kings was mentioned: David, Solomon, Haile Selassie. I always ask the clergymen, why you talk about Solomon? You talk about David. Why not Emperor Haile Selassie I? Is he not a member of that imperial royal lineage? Did he not receive the triple crown? Did he not sit on the throne of David? Did he not receive all the 7 symbols of the coronation? If you are talking about anything to do with Christ and Christ's return on the throne, you have to remember Haile Selassie I. The blood of Christ flowed in his veins, and we are talking about the black man. So when the Abuna said those words, another priest read from Psalm 20. And we asked you them read them Psalms there. This was read when he was anointed.
We're going to do a reading list. We have to do a coronation reading list and put it out with all of the Psalms and different the ones
I will assist. I want to track with Lion Voice because the info is here now. Now, can you imagine when the high priest of Aksum came now with the triple crown and handed it to the Abuna? The blessing of the coronation now was in its final moment. It's like everyone sit on the edge of them seat now. Because when that triple crown was unfolded, and to naked eyes on one seat, with all the jewels that were on it, it was a magnificent piece of craftsmanship. The triple crown, because hence now, here is a king who was crowned. This is the 3rd time he was crowned. He was crowned 1916 as regent plenipotentiary, heir to the throne, Ras of Rasses, judge of the judges. Yeah. He was then crowned, Negos, 1928, October 7, and now, November 2nd, he was to be crowned, Negas, King of Kings, Emperor of Ethiopia, King of Zion, King of Israel. Can you imagine? That crown now was brought up by the Abuna and placed upon the head of his imperial majesty. And the Abuna looked at the emperor and said, may God grant that this crown be a crown of halo and holiness. And when this crown is laid aside, may you, Haile Selassie I, inherit a crown of life eternal.
Haile.
And the crown was placed on his head. We see the crown laid aside now, so we know His Majesty is in eternity. Because that was the blessing of coronation. It was said when this crown is laid aside. So there was a prescribed time where we would have ruled for 44 years. That was a very symbolic time when the crown was laid aside. So the emperor now been crowned King of Kings, Lion of Judah, all these titles bestowed upon him, and the multitude now and the chants went up. The emperor stood up. This is the time now where he got up from his throne, the golden globe in one hand, the scepter in one hand, the triple crown on his head, the imperial vest in the 2 diamond encrusted rings, the master of the king's horses with the lance, and the emperor stepped forward. And you know what he did? He read Psalm 101 aloud. Psalm
Haile.
101. And if you want to find the research, go to David Talbot's book, The Silver Jubilee of Haile Selassie I. David Talbot, carrying the research on the coronation, said Psalm 101 was read by His Imperial Majesty, and that is why we enacted it into the opening psalms of the Nyahbinghi at the fire key. It's a commitment to order. I will sing of mercy and judgment. Unto thee, O Jah, will I sing. I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. Oh, when wilt thou come unto me? I will walk in thine house with a perfect heart. I will set no wicked thing before mine eyes. I hate the work of them that turn aside, and it shall not cleave to I. A froward heart shall depart from I, and I will not know a wicked person. Whoso privily slandereth his neighbor, him will I cut off. He that hath a high look and a proud heart, will I not suffer. Mine eye shall be upon the faithful of the land, that they may dwell with I. He that walketh in a perfect way, he shall serve I. He that worketh deceit shall not dwell in thy house, and he that telleth lies shall not tarry in my sight. I will early destroy all the wicked of the land, that I may cut off all the evildoers from the city of the Most High. Now, when I just imagine those words being said by the king, just received all this authority. I think he was saying to the nation, like an oath of allegiance, I will behave myself wisely in a perfect way. And
he did that.
I'm not going to take no lion around him, you know. I'm not going to take those who work deceitfulness against him brother and him sister. And it's something that we as Rasta have to hold on to. And know that it is Majesty can make this commitment. And when you read that at the coronation, we are to take example that these traits, we must maintain the positive of the traits His Majesty tell us, so we mustn't be a part of, and we must hold the positive part of knowing that we not tell lie, we not thief, we not backbite with brother, yeah, we not do none of these things, because if you're wicked, Him tell us, I will early destroy all the wicked of the land.
One of the word sound that we're pushing on the Lion Voice Network is discipline right now, because what he's talking about, yes, is a disciplined life. And even the enemies of Haile Selassie, when you read the critics, they would agree that he have the highest degree of discipline. They may not, they may paint it a certain way, but no one can argue in terms of the impeccable nature which His Majesty moved through earth. They would say he acted like he was a god, or they would use kind of things to try slander the king.
So many great men in Africa who met the emperor, they can tell you that they felt like they were in the presence of God. They were in the presence of someone who was more than a man. They can tell you when Billy Graham was seeking to find an individual church figure to speak at the Berlin Conference of Churches, he searched his thought and mind of all the church fathers he had met as an outstanding church leader. And he said there was none he could find outside of His Imperial Majesty, Emperor Haile Selassie I. And I read that in his autobiography in the home of my family over there, my Empress mother and family in Long Island. I was just there and saw a book on the shelf, the autobiography of Billy Graham. And when I took the book out, one of my brethren said to me, Ras Ivi, what are you doing with that book, autobiography of Billy Graham? That's it.
But I have a Billy Graham book here. Preach and President. Just
all right. So in his autobiography, he spoke of how he wanted to get a significant world leader that encapsulates the fullness of what the Christ life should be. And he searched his thought and mind and all. And he could not come up with none other than the person of Emperor Haile Selassie I. So he sent invitation. He asked His Majesty, please, we are asking Your Majesty, would you like to come to Ethiopia to talk to you about this upcoming conference, and we'd like to invite you to be there. He said when he made his trip to Ethiopia, the day came when the emperor decided to meet him. When he was walking up the palace ground, to go to the palace, he said, to his left was a great lion. To his right, there were other lions. And when he looked to his left again, there was more lions joining the party, the pride. So a white man been escorted up to the palace, saw lions to his left, lions to his right. He said, I was so scared. But the guide said to me, be not afraid. They will not harm you, because the lions were just coming. And not tell me, even we as Rasta, we go to palace and we just used to, if we see one little pit bull or one little mongrel and we want to grab a stone. Can you imagine? We see some enormous lions walking. It's only I and I, with the faith and love of His Majesty, will just have the confidence that no, the King's Lion will do us as Rasta. Would I hold that faith there, but
yes,
still I watch him. And still I watch him do it. So Billy Graham said, when they said to him, they comforted him to say, no, you're okay, you're fine, just keep walking. He said in his book, I guess the King's Lion did not relish the flesh of a European. So,
and that's a science, you know, that's a science, because the king has shown us that no weak heart can come before the throne.
You understand? So he said he entered, and he and His Majesty had this discourse, and we know the history of His Majesty's speech to that conference of churches. Yeah,
it's a must read. It's a must read.
Yes, I. So the king been crowned now. You know, the crown prince was next, because the ceremony was a lengthy one. You know,
yes,
guys sit down till him weary. You know. I remember not even him blood I can't give, you know, because he can't get up about him and go about it. You have to sit down there and observe what is happening. You have to even forget say you didn't want the bathroom. Forget say you all hungry too, because nobody now eat nothing or drink nothing. Or this is a divine ceremony taking place. So the crown prince, as for Hussein, came and knelt before his father, and the Abuna accosted him too. That will you be like Absalom, hungry for power, plot against the father? Will you be like Adonias, who plot against his father David? And you know, the prince with humble answer, that conscious as I am of the golden maxim to honor thy father and thy mother, I will never plot against my father, the emperor. So he had to swear oath. His Majesty had to swear his oath. And when His Majesty swear his oath, you think him oath did not swear, so a priest does come with a book. A golden book of oath, and give him a golden pen and say, Your Majesty, put your signature there. But you have to sign to your oath, you know. That means at any time, if any king in that lineage was bestowed with this authority of kingship, and you're going to break your oath, what you think you're going to do? He might go for the book of oath, can come show you, you know. And show you where you did sign to, you know. You think he might tell yourself to abdicate? You think he might tell you say you impeach? You yourself know you violated your sacred vows. Get up and go. So the emperor had to swear his oath of allegiance to the church, to the crown, to the people, to the whatever. And Crown Prince, as I was saying, had to swear his oath also that he will not be like Absalom, hungry and thirsty for power, plot against his father. Later on, that oath is questioned, because in 1960, when the emperor went to Brazil, we know, who study the history, knew what happened in 1960 when he sided with those usurpers wanting to put him up as the new emperor. So he too swore his oath, and his father say, may God grant you here to my crown, authority and throne. So the prince was crowned. Then, you know, after that now is nullation now, you know, because we have thing coming from inside the ancient cathedral to the great tent. Walata Georgis.
Haile.
Walata Georgis with all the virgins her companion. And if you read Psalm 45, she was brought before the king in raiment of fine needlework, the virgins her companion.
The whole section from Wallow mash up, you know.
Listen to me now. The province of Walla stood out. I mean, I tell you, say, if they were allowed to fire them rifles at the time, you know, those women would have fired their rifles, but it was not the order that the rifles should fire, but the revelation rippled
Yes.
the miles. The women of Ethiopia rejoiced. This was the first time now a woman, a queen, was to be crowned on the same day of the emperor's coronation. So that was joy for the women of Ethiopia. So the virgins, her companion, you know, they would have brought her nice trail garment up to the throne. She went up, she went and made obeisance to the king, made obeisance to her husband. And then she went, sat back on her throne, regal as ever, beautiful as ever. Can you imagine? She was pregnant then.
Yes. Trinity.
She was pregnant then, so that was really a triune sitting on the throne because Prince Haile Selassie was in the womb.
Yes.
And
Very
she was
important.
there as
That crimson coronation picture is a Trinity. I trip.
Trinity, I trip.
Yes,
And then there was Prince Makonnen was standing there at 7, and Aspa was there at 14. So these youths stood up through this lengthy ceremony as regal as ever, you know. And to have the Empress at the most holy altar the night before, early in the morning to be a part of the ceremony, pregnant. And the mothers were watching and listening live. You know what pregnancy is when you know, those lengthy hours. But, I mean, it was mind over matter. This was the most auspicious moment of her life. She was to create history. She was the first queen, the first woman to sit and crown on the same day of the emperor's coronation. So, you know, the Abuna would come forward. The same Abuna Saruwas, he placed a beautiful diamond ring on her hand. And then the Abuna brought forward now her crown, the crown of the Queen of Queens. Because Zardatu was Queen of Kings, but Empress Madam, her Imperial Majesty, her title was Queen of Queens. So when Abuna Krilios brought the triple crown, he brought the crown of Empress, he gave it to His Imperial Majesty. In my view, because it was a custom for the king to crown the queen, Abuna Krilios gave the crown to the emperor.
Yes, I
don't think that was what was to be done. But how it unfolded revealed to me that yes, Abuna thought that the king would have crowned his queen, as customary. So he gave the crown to His Imperial Majesty, who took the crown, bowed his head. We know that's a sign of a moment of reverence.
Yes.
In silence, so we know it was in meditation and prayer. And then he sat back on his throne, looked the Abuna in the eyes, stretched the crown back to him, and said, "As I have been blessed to receive from your hands this crown granted me by God, I ask you, your holiness, to place this crown upon her head." You must imagine when that happened and the Abuna took forward the crown and made a few steps over to the canopy where the Empress was and placed the crown of state upon her head. And the Abuna came and spoke of, made this crown be a crown of joy and let it bestow intelligence and piety upon you, your Imperial Majesty. And he crowned the Empress. Wow. The little elation that went on when that happened, and then the Abuna said, "So be it," and the audience said, "So be it." So the king, the queen, the prince, a black royal family was just crowned. So at that time now, it's actually sealing up. It's the three triune crown took place. The king, the queen, the prince had his coronet, the emperor's triple crown, the queen of queens thus crowned. So the choir would go up in a moment of solemnity and chant and then the dignitaries. The clergy came forward and all bowed before her divine majesty, his divine majesty. They bowed before the imperial family, then followed by the dignitaries. So the Duke of Gloucester, hey, white guy, come bow. You never bow before a black king? Come up now, come bow. Yo, Prince Udini from Italy, your turn. Come bow. This was history. This is where the black man now for rejoice now because you know we have a king, we have treated us come on the earth. So we have to go Ethiopia, go bow before a black king.
In the holy mountains. Yes.
So they all bow before the king. And then it was time now for a royal procession outside the cathedral. And the multitude shouted and waved palm branches, Hosanna, Hosanna, blessed be the King of Israel, blessed is he who cometh in the name of the Lord. So all these things were said, and the multitude shouted, and the ululation of the women in Ethiopia, and a 101 gun salute, and a sound of 1,000 trumpets echoed throughout Addis Ababa for miles. When we hear a one trumpet sound, it's a heavy sound, And when you hear 1,000 trumpets have a blow with all might and splendor, it's a mighty sound that transmits sound for miles. So 101 gun salute, a sound of 1,000 trumpets in the city of the great king. So His Majesty became the 225th king in the line of David and Solomon, the 334th of all the divine kings of Ethiopia, 134th of the divine kings, and the 334th in the line of succession. That was historic. That coronation, I mean, that said the jets that flew over Addis Ababa, it's like it was deafening. All the party, all the symbols, everything, it was just pandemonium. You could see the thousands of people who lined up to follow behind this royal procession now, going to the palace. So, November 2nd, 1930, All Souls Day, a special day in the history of the world. For the black man, it was one of the most glorious era in the history of the black man, where nations had to come to Africa to bow before a black royal family. To me, to Ras Ivi, and to all of us, we should see coronation as the event that concretized, that cemented, that strengthened our resolve of our ancients to recognize that, yes, the black man king crown, yes, the Lion of Judah, the prophecy has been fulfilled. Behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, I will rise unto David a righteous branch, and a king shall reign and prosper, and shall execute judgment and justice in the earth. If you ask me, judgment and justice was executed at the League of Nations. Judgment and justice was executed at the UN, and if the UN don't watch itself, when His Majesty warned them in 1945 that we are here to build on the ashes of the League of Nations, the League failed because it failed to listen my plea before this August body. So, you see the UN now, them better watch themselves because we see them make several mistakes, not dealing with the rights.
I've been saying that, Ras Ivi, that 1963 speech that Bob Marley turned into a song is a warning in that speech,
Of course.
And the UN has failed on all accounts, by an objective measure, because we're watching the world descending to war. We're watching His Majesty wanted to expand the Security Council. The whole movement for disarmament has been derailed. We're getting back into a nuclear arms race. All of these things that His Majesty told the nations, if we go down this way. But he did say that we Africans will fight.
If we find it necessary. And we know we shall win.
We are
don't have no arms, We
Yes.
know we shall win because we are confident in the inevitable victory of good over evil.
Good
We are
over
seeing the
evil.
UN making too much mistake. Remember one time when them say when a council went into Iraq and said, you know, so we're not seeing no weapon of no mass destruction, and the guy up there said, listen, get out of there, because we come in with shock and awe. So them can
Yes.
run a UN body out of a country to carry out them evil. So the UN, and we see what is happening from October 7th last year till now. We see a people being in a bad
Televised.
situation in the Middle East, and it's like there's no
Televised.
world body that will stand up for justice. They must be careful that the words that His Majesty spoke at the League don't manifest on the United Nations, because he warned them that they were building on the ashes of their predecessor.
But remember, Ras Ivi, that there's a portion in Revelation when John said he couldn't write it, you know, because it's so dreadful. And remember, Matthew 24 is when you see Jerusalem surrounded by armies,
Then
know
you know
that the time of destruction is nigh. Him
it's
say,
that
you
time.
in Judea, flee to the hills.
Yes, I.
Don't go to the cities. You know, these are things that we have been instructed. So I'm telling my Rastafari family, we should be in a preparation mode right now, because the institutions of government have failed. So there's a different judgment that is coming. But this is also our time to build the alternative. While Babylon collapses, I have been blessed, you know what I mean, with the vision to build that heavenly city descending from the heavens that shall emerge.
And some of our plans won't be televised. We may
No.
have to have retreats, and we may have to plan our plan of action, because we know that the time is drawing nigh. But the coronation of His Majesty now, you know, it empowered him now with the supreme authority as ruler of Ethiopia. With that supreme authority now, you don't have to ask Empress Zadi to no longer for a stamp of approval. He had the stamp of approval. He had maximum authority. But with all that authority, what did he do in his first year reign as emperor? He instituted a parliament. He shared power with his people.
Of his own volition, and his advisors said he was crazy to give a constitution when he could rule by decree.
Exactly.
The other thing that we don't talk about, Ras Ivi, is leading up to the coronation, he withdrew his money from the bank in America, and he purchased the Bank of Egypt, which was established in Ethiopia, and nationalized it to create the Bank of Ethiopia, so that Ethiopia would have its own sovereign bank. So that was done with His Majesty's own personal wealth. So I don't want I as Rastafari to feel like this is a poverty trad. You know what I mean? We are so that poverty is a badge of honor. We are a royal line, and I'm glad that I touch on the 10 ounces of gold, solid gold.
In a sacred ceremony.
In a sacred ceremony.
We would have said, nah man, put the money aside, man. We are the righteous king, the majesty. After he was invested with his coronation robe, he summoned the keeper of the royal treasury to place 10 ounces of gold. He gave his offering, which is saying to us, while we're praying, don't forget that we have to take care of the welfare of the church, of the family.
Yes.
So His Majesty, after coronation, his works, he was so empowered with greatness. Yeah. As you said, the constitution that he gave, it wasn't, they said constitution, some countries, is like it have to be enforced on you to have a constitution. No, it was by his own thought and action he instituted a constitution. And a constitution taking power from himself. Which man I relieve himself from power and authority. I will have done up myself and King Kong up myself. No, His Majesty gave the country a constitution. So listen, once upon a time we usually rule by traditional laws. No, we now will set a constitution. We will have written laws, written codes. We will share power with the people. So yeah, you had the Ministry of Construction, you had the Ministry of Housing, you know. Yo, you are the Ministry of Education. Let him take Ministry of Education itself. Most of these leaders love finance ministry, you know. They love
Yeah,
finance
yes.
ministry. They would have take the Minister of Finance, but what His Majesty took. Ministry of Education, he was the Minister of and that was one of the hardest tasks because actually out of 25 million at the time, most were not literate
Yes.
to modern standards. So His Majesty had a tremendous task now because he said his first duty was to educate his illiterate millions.
Set
So
the captives free.
schools, yes, him start build schools and all these things and hospitals and factories and dams and all the great things. And you know, being empowered that way now and start look on the continent and see that the continent checkerboarded with all some artificial boundaries, everybody, everywhere in Europe and piece of Africa. That was distasteful in his eyes. And him start now rally now as to how can I help now as an independent sovereign to liberate my continent. So His Majesty not just did have a government on his shoulders, as Isaiah 9 verse 6 did say, you know, that the government shall be upon his shoulder. Unto us a child is born, a son is given, and the government shall be on his shoulder. And his name shall be called Wonderful Counselor, the Mighty God, the Ever-Living Father, and the Prince of Peace. He never just satisfied doing so. Him said, listen now, my continent, my country now, my whole people now, we have to get some freedom for them from these colonizers. So His Majesty started his mission. And we see how he took the different blocks coming up early in the 50s, coming up into 60s, and he take the Brazzavillian group and the Moravia and the Casablanca and say, listen now, brethren, we can't approach African unity divided, make we come together. We have to speak with one voice. And it's true that now, you know, we have a grand OAU.
The highest of himself shall establish I and I.
Yes! And you know, many ones felt that this was a dream. How can him get Africa to unite? His Majesty had the vision. I mean, Kwame Nkrumah and others, and Nyerere and Kaunda and Nasser, they all had this idea. But the way them did approach it, when Judah the lawgiver come and say, brethren, we can't approach it in a splinter group, brethren. We have to have the RMO. We have to come together as one. It can't be over there, so Bingi over there, so tribe over there, so we have to come together and speak with one voice.
One voice.
And respect with each other and chart the course now for the whole liberation, because a lot to be done in Ras Tafari. We don't have no school, we don't have no health center, we don't have no home for the aged.
Each aspect of the creed need an institution, need a physical institution for each. Hungry fed, that is a whole section. Naked clothes is a whole section. Infants, for all of them need their own.
Ignorant, educated.
Ignorant, educated. Where is the Campion College, which is a Rastafari, you know, equivalent to these high Georges and these great institutions that have the legacy, which are Catholic, you know, the Pope. So
why we not invest in upgrading the facilities at the Haile Selassie I school and make it a gem, a jewel in the art of it.
We're gonna do it, Ras Ivi. We're going to do it. I'm confident, you know, the RMO is working together. Slowly but surely, we have plans. As you say, we're not gonna televise everything, but we are going to televise a lot here on the Lion Voice because we want to change the narrative. We're not just running out on a stage.
What is to be televised will be televised, and what, because some things you have to have the plan of action.
Yes.
So when it comes to fruition and it cannot be thwarted, the guy can't put no wedge in our spokes. That's the time we say yes. This is it. So by the time you hear about it, it is already in stone. It is already implemented.
So I really just give thanks, you know, for the eye strength. As I said, there is an inspiration to many brethren. I know it has not been an easy road for the eye. You know, I mean, still on the battlefield, but just know that the eye oration, when it come on to the history, to I is second to none. You know what I mean? And I tell the I that. And I want just make the I know that it's appreciate love. This is the I home. The Lion Voice Network is the I home. So anything that the I want, you know, I know that I have the chance to see these, the different thing that the I want promote. This stamp here is made by the brethren and the item who know I know that I always have on Ras Ivi
I creation.
creation, you know, as an original Bingy man. This is how
Yes.
we come up. You know what I mean? I mean, just stick to that because we love them. We have so
Yes,
many. I
sir.
need to get some new ones too. You know what I mean?
Yes.
In due season. But the item we see I with this from from university days till now.
No,
And
give
I
thanks, give
really,
thanks to the support Rastafari
yeah,
because
man.
every
The
time we
eyes
hear
are gem.
one of these creations, it's like my joy is I am promoting Haile Selassie the first and all these Rastafari symbols. I once wore a hat at a One Love concert that TNT put on in Jamaica, Jameson Beach, and a white guy from Europe look at my hat and say, "Oh, that's Haile Selassie when he was at the League of Nations." I said, "What? You know that picture?" He said, "Oh, yes, that famous picture with that belt. Oh, that was when the emperor addressed the league." I was moved to find a European just looking at my crown like he's looking at yours now with that coronation portrait and could recognize it's the crowning moment of Haile Selassie. This white guy recognized that the image I had on the hat was His Majesty's appearance at the league. And we went into a discussion on what took place at the league. And you know, we sat and we talked about our Czechoslovakian shot himself in the
Yes.
gallery at the League of Nations. Because when he saw the injustice of the League of Nations, this Czechoslovakian felt that I should no longer live in this world. And he put the gun to his head and he killed himself. These don't make big fancy headlines and we don't reiterate these facts that you can overstand. That in the interest of justice, a European killed himself because he said, how could they do this? How could they support Mussolini? And that is why the president of Mexico, when we went there this year,
Yes.
for the 70th anniversary of His Majesty's visit to Mexico, we saluted President Cardenas because he sent his envoy to the League.
Yes.
Tell them that Mussolini is wrong and the League should never stand in the way of Ethiopia. Mussolini is wrong, so the Mexican people saluted Ethiopia and stood in Ethiopia's defense, and that is why in Mexico today we have Plaza de Ethiopia, and in Ethiopia we have a image for the Mexican family. We have Mexico Square in Addis Ababa. So His Majesty's rule in the earth and things that was done, you know, like the 70th anniversary, you know, and His Majesty's presence at the league, and when it's been a reason with this white lie. We also mentioned that there was a woman who advised all the women of the world who were still in childbearing age to desist from having any more children. Because she contended that if this is the world we're going to raise children in, where there's no justice, why should we continue to have children in this world?
And we have to also note that His Majesty is the first head of state to address an international body. You know what I mean? So
it was unprecedented.
when you read about,
you know, the American president advising, "No, Your Majesty, you should not have gone. No, you should not go to the league. It is not in proper order." For His Majesty said, "It is only I who can address this situation as emperor." So His Majesty addressed both the league and the UN, and the capacity in which him addressed these two world bodies. I say God was at the conference table.
yes,
and
I.
the nations of the world did not listen to him, And that is why we have these wars continuing up until this day. And we see Ethiopia going through a serious crisis of uncertainty from 1974 up until now. The 17 years of blood terror rule from the Mengistu regime, followed by the other rulers, up to present day, unsettledness like a roller coaster ride. It all happened because they fly in the face of the Lion of Judah. How can you, a king that received such high honors, his own constitution said the person of the emperor is sacred, his dignity is inviolable and his power undisputable, and whoever think to injure the person of the emperor shall be punished by death. So you know, come up against the Lion of Judah like that.
And he also said Ethiopia must never be divided by tribal lines, and they did just that.
They did just that. He was against tribalism, what His Majesty did when he established his parliament. He take a man from Clarendon, and a man from St. Catherine, and another leader from over St. James, and one from St. Elizabeth. So he took leaders from all the different provinces. So you can't say we're impartial or biased. He broadened the scope. And if him find a man over St. Catherine when not really academically inclined for the office, you know what him do? And get a bright youngster like Kwasi beside him. To help guide him along the way until he could have picked up. That was how His Majesty was strategic. Ensuring that governance, and he never wanted the bad mind thing, and he knew how his people's thoughts were, so he did the best in terms of governance for his people. Who is like unto thee, O Haile Selassie the First? I'm over happy now, the Jazzmark, that I'm seeing members of the imperial family coming out, writing books, doing documentaries, you know, on their grandfather, their great-granduncle, and writing, because it's time the Ethiopians start to speak. You know, they have been through turmoil, you know, as I said in one of my chants. I wrote that in 1974, the Marxist Mengistu regime reigned 17 years of blood terror on the people of Ethiopia. 59 ministers of government, including members of the imperial family, were killed and imprisoned. We know the royal family went through hell. They went through turmoil. They had to go in exile. Some were in prison, some were killed. Now, those who are remaining out, some are in Ethiopia, some are in the West. You know, we met some of them in Washington. They're all over, California, all over. We're saying it's time they start to write about their august father. Them don't have to see him the way we see him, you know, because you see, where we see Haile Selassie, it was revealed to us.
And if you have not got this book, which is Haile Selassie, Ethiopia, the foreword was written by Prince Ermias, you know, and also Dr. Akililu, who was the head of Haile Selassie University during His Majesty reign, and they both read the book and were kind enough to write a foreword. So the Ethiopians are starting to embrace their legacy in terms of the emperor and be more upfront, because at one time they were very hesitant to speak, you know what I mean?
Yes, because so many lies were told about the emperor. You know?
Yes.
We came up at a time in my uprising school in the 70s, and it's peer rumor. We hear all our principal and teachers come to tell us how the emperor salted millions of dollars in a Swiss bank account and started people. And now the facts are out there that when Professor Eulendorf, Professor in the University of London, when him and members of the family carried out an investigation in the Swiss bank, the Swiss authorities said not a cent, penny or franc was found in any Swiss account belonging to Emperor Haile Selassie the First.
All invested forward into the country.
Exactly. Everything was invested. And the National Commercial Bank of Ethiopia was to bring out the fact that the amount of reserve that was there in Ethiopia, nobody could ever say that the emperor had salted away any money.
I saw a documentary where the finance, they said when they look at the finance, they were marveling. They say, how is Maisi do so much with that amount, you know, because but because he was supplementing with his own,
With
um,
his own
and His
finances.
Majesty was a businessman from Harar because he inherited his father's estates, the farms, the trusts. And these are the things that we have to understand about royalty. You know, when we hear noble, sometimes it's just a word that we bandy about there, but there's an economic foundation that they had. They were running operations, you know, both commercial, import, export businesses. So as Rastafari, we cannot be afraid of business. This is part of our heritage and our legacy, and there's nothing spiritual about poverty. You know what I mean? Is an affliction. So I must realize His Majesty show us how to walk through the eye of an eagle. Because you know it said easier for a rich man, I mean a camel to enter through the eye of an eagle than a rich man to enter into Zion. His Majesty show us that narrow path of how to trod with wealth and still enter the gates. You know what I mean? So
Yeah,
we
of
have
course.
that example of giving and all these things. But I just want the eye to say some final words on about coronation, and then I want the eye to seal us out with a little yarn because you have some rewriting in terms of the all nation after bow. And if you can do a little piece of that part there.
No,
Um,
the judgment, man. You have to play something from Ark of the Covenant all the way
okay,
down to
okay. Send
the
it to I.
samurai.
Send it to I. Anything you want to play, just send it on, and we play it as part of the episode. You
Because
know.
I thought you would have had that in the background,
Yes.
thumping our nation at the bow and crowning King of Kings. The judgment, you know, coming up as a Bingley youth now, you know, we saw many of our chants were adopted from traditional churches. I was of the view that as Rastafari, we must write our own story. We must sing our own songs. We must write our own hymns. That makes us independent. Build our own institution. Yeah? Create our own garment. We want food. We want word sound. We want everything as an independent people. I felt that the Nyahbinghi order was too dependent on adapting chants, you know. And it was my mom who brought it to my attention. One day we come from Bingi and was chanting, I, 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 I. So while we did here chant that and the tape a play, we hear our mother come around the corner. There is a green hill far away. So we say, wait, where you know this chant you from? She said, then wait, when we usually carry on go church, we never usually sing them song. Yeah. We say, yeah. She said, yeah. And then she try to chant again. Without a city wall. It's like we say, wait, hold on, stop the tape. So you tell me say that well this is where the elders them say I too. Is that song that come from the church? You know, say I was disappointed. Because I felt that, you know, coming out of Babylon, coming out of a church system and coming into Rastafari, we would have been singing our own praise song.
Yes.
But that melody was a nice melody, and up to now we still chant it because we put our own words and we changed the words from how it was written to suit our own spiritual reality. But then I went deep in thought and said, we need to write our own praise song.
Yes.
I remember 1980 for the Golden Jubilee as a young man. 1980, I was 22 years old. And I wrote a chant that said, Hosanna, Hosanna, unto the King of Kings.
Yeah, man.
Chanting Hosanna, Hosanna, unto the Lord of Lords. Now, having written that chant now as a young man, oh, me I go bring this to the Bingi amidst Bongo Tani, Bongo Biga, Bongo Wato, Bongo Chefan, Bongo Time, Bongo Pool, Bongo Derminite, these great elders, Mama Bubbles, that died. No, you as a young man going go into the congregation, go rise a song where the congregation don't know. So we had a plan because I had my brothers, Ras Ivi, and my empress, and we had other brethren that we went to be with. We sat down together in our little tent, in our little area, and was
Wi-Fi, the guy. So family, it seems as though the Wi-Fi is no longer cooperating, but we had a powerful reasoning, Ras Ivi Tafari. So family, these things happen, you know. We give thanks for the time that we had with the brethren. If you want a part 2, drop a comment. If you love what you heard and you want part 2, drop a comment. You know, Ras Abuna, we're gonna bring him forward for the part 2. Ras Ivi Afi come forward for the part 2 as well. We are calling on all Rastafari worldwide to use this time of coronation as we reflect on the glory, the honor, and the majesty. Let us come together. Let us put aside the petty differences. Let us allow this day to re-energize the foundation of the movement and the mission, which was the establishment of peace on earth. His Majesty is the foundation. He is Shiloh, Shiloh meaning peace on earth. The king has come, and now it's incumbent on the rest, because it's never been a one-man thing, Superman thing. You know what I mean? The Almighty dwell within the hearts. We are all part of the goodie on the Most High. This is where our superpower comes from, our ability to change, to manifest our thoughts into physical reality. This is how the pyramids were built, through collective security. There's no obstacle, nothing impossible. Even the angels, you know, fear man because of what we can do when we come together. So let us come together, brethren and sistren, around creation, and you know, let us glorify Haile Selassie through the works, because the world still has not seen the full magnitude of the power. And this is why we are going to use that power to power this platform to heights never before attained within the movement, within the liberty, within the Pan-African family, because we know that that power is there. Others have tapped into it, but we are going to harness that divine power here on the Lion's Voice Network. Why? Because the time has come for the lions to tell our own story. And this is the Lion's Voice.
Lion Voice.
Well, great is the Almighty, and greatly to be praised in the city of Haile Selassie I, the mountain of His holiness.
Yeah, from Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, you know, the whole entire continent.
Beautiful for situation, the joy of the whole earth is Mount Zion, from Accra to Addis Ababa.
Yes, it's beautiful continent, better control, mama.
Very beautiful.
From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, I smile for Mama.
I hear you call Mama Africa. Been so long since I see Mama. Father of Africa set the law. The lion come and dismantle Babylon flaw. We gonna use solar energy, use sanitation to build the ecology. We utilizing green technology. We hailing Haile Selassie first without apology. And then we build the youth them economy. We dismantle Babylon monopoly. We teach the youth them how to live properly. Tell them make sure them got the title for them property.
beautiful continent that I'm gonna show Mama Africa. From Cape to Cairo, from Timbuktu to the Nile, I smile for Mama Africa.
I love you, mama, your heart never harden. I wanna turn all your slums into garden. I wanna stop all of your youths from starving. I wanna stop all of your tribes from warring. So much to say, so many feelings. We've both been hurt, we both need healing. Since the League of Nations you've been appealing. You stand up against them backdoor dealing.